Good morning. My name is Juli Cicarelli. I don't usually come to the early service, so I'm happy to meet such wide awake, energetic, enthusiastic, happy people. You are all awake, right? Yes. As the Kinship Ministry Coordinator, I've been asked to tell you about the Kinship groups at Countryside. My main task as Kinship Coordinator is to help ensure that Countryside is an inclusive, compassionate, respectful, and welcoming community. I know that each and every one of you will help me in that task. As a church community, an important task is to greet newcomers, make them feel welcome, by introducing ourselves and telling them a bit about our church. We have a wonderful membership committee ably led by Tom McTavish. The committee, Siri Lauren, Don Huskra, Dan Wiseman, and Chris Smith, is responsible for the Path to Membership classes. Some of the kinship groups at our church include the 20s, 30-something, which is the social group, and Branches and Vine, a Christian study group. Both of these groups were started by Dan Hunstra. We encourage others like Dan who saw a need to think about forming a group or join in an ongoing one. Transitions is another group led by Gloria Kinney and Dan Wiseman. This was formed because members expressed an interest in a social and study group that would meet during the day. The Feminine Divine group came about because women in the congregation wanted to study feminist theology, and we take turns leading that group. There is also a working group which is reorganizing the chalice circles. For information, talk to Lisa Bonet, Carol Patton, or Dan Wiseman. Another group available to members is the Compassionate Panel for Resolving Conflict, and that is chaired by Vid Axel. Another of my responsibilities is to see that church events like our in-gathering in September and our upcoming April 3rd Seder have enough volunteer help. I want to commend Carol Bobby for volunteering to head that event. It's a huge undertaking. The 20s and 30s group, now headed by Jessica Gardner and Ryan Suffrage, have also agreed to help out. I'm doing cleanup duty, and so I need lots of volunteers to help. I always need volunteers for our Sundays, making coffee, ushering, and greeting. I'm happy to be able today to publicly thank Mark Jovenka and Raymond Yee for so often doing coffee hour. Please feel free to talk to me and other ministry coordinators for ways that you can help out. Countryside is one place where participation is welcomed, encouraged, and thankfully appreciated. And since it is budgeting time, financial support is also necessary, encouraged, and thankfully appreciated. Rather than listen to me rattle on, I thought the best way to discuss kinship at Countryside is to introduce two newcomers who have experienced our efforts firsthand and who, like Dan Huskra, have jumped right in feet first. And I'd like to introduce the dynamic duo of George and Kathy Motto.
Good morning. I think that the church will realize they should never give me a microphone after this morning. It's always hard to get up and say why we do difficult things in our lives. I tend to get around that by romanticizing it a bit and intellectualizing, and I hope I don't do that too much. I remember from grammar school, I always had my doubts. I did go to a Catholic, have a Catholic education. I had my doubts about the dogma of an all-powerful God that was judgmental and vindictive and micromanaged everybody's life and was the only road to salvation. However, as usual, with people, I kind of followed along and played along and continued. When I was a sophomore at Loyola in Chicago, I met Kathy, my soulmate, and I only thank goodness that she shared some of my views. We did continue with our following along and accepting, especially while the kids were younger and growing up, because we wanted them to have a religion. However, eventually, when the kids got older, we both kind of left organized religion. So finally, we was searching. What do we do when we get married? What do we do when we die? We need a community. And one of the young fellows in my improv class at Metropolis, Doug, said, "Why don't you look into Unitarianism?" I said, "What's Unitarianism?" He said, "Well," I said, "What do you know about?" He said, "I was born a Unitarian." One of the few people that was born a Unitarian, but raised, not born. And so I said, "Where?" He said, "Well, this church in Palatine." And we said, "Oh, okay." So we came here, and I don't believe in wow experiences, but I guess I do. As soon as we walked in, it was a different feeling. People were very friendly. Of course, I'll have to say that we were at a different stage of our lives. I mean, we're much older. Kathy and I met, I said, 56 years ago when I was a sophomore in college. So we had more time and probably more open. But we found CCUU. And I'll have to say that we pretty much, after that first visit, decided that we were going to join. And then, of course, the kids said, "You don't need religion, Dad. We'll give you a good funeral and all that." And I said, "No, and you're going to give them your money." I said, "Save the money, give them money." No, I said, "No, we need something." And so eventually, after a few months of back and forth, we joined. And I think it's been a very good choice. And I did think, though, that it's just as an aside, that Susan B. Looked a little bit like Hillary. I mean, it's beautiful, beautiful. Well, anyway, I'm going to shut up now, and Kathy will tell more of our experience.
Really quickly, what did we find when we got here? Well, we found greeters. People were greeting you. You knew you were in the right place at the right time. They steered us to a name tag, which always feels like, okay, you're belong here. There was a place to sit. Instead of stained glass, we had real glass with this really beautiful surrounding, and we found an intelligent, a really good service, an intelligent sermon that was thoughtful. It was attention to the kids, and particularly important to me was gorgeous music. So it felt really good. And then there was coffee hour, and people noticed our new name tags and said, do we want to, have any questions? Do we want to talk with anybody? And Hillary wasn't too busy to sit down and talk with us. There were a couple others, and Julie was there, and it felt good. We had some basic questions, like George said, well, what about life's events and milestones? Is this a real church? And yeah, it's a real church. It does pay attention to milestones and things like that. We learned about the Universalist connection, or which I had no knowledge of. And eventually we were on the pathway to membership. We were in the summer, and kind of in a rapid it was one afternoon, and we had a chance to both learn more and explore our own reasons, religion, and thoughts, and it felt really good to belong and to sign the book and become real members. Kind of learned, like, there's a sign over the sink. It says you're responsible for your own theology and your own dishes, and I think that's pretty true. We were also followed into the transitions group. It met during the daytime. Julie kind of put out some, interesting, enticing ideas about what they do. And the first subject was kind of a big lure to me. It was why we travel. As a person who has the travel bug, it became really like, oh boy, this will be fun. And it was. And it was fun to have the potlucks. I think it's really neat to eat well and be in a communal atmosphere. So anyway, it's about a year that we've come here, pretty much exactly about a year, and we're glad we found CCUU. So thanks.